everybody. Welcome to our opening keynote. Okay, can everybody hear me? If you can't, go ahead and just type Y in the chat. We've done this before, but that's what the gamers do because YES just takes too long and you might get killed by a boss, just in case. Oh, perfect. Okay, I see we have like 130 some people, which is a great way to start out the day. And on behalf of the eLearning Consortium of Colorado, we want to welcome Spencer Ellis, who is just about to begin. Now, he is the Director of Education Innovation here in the great state of Colorado for the Department of Higher Ed. His keynote, as you can see, is Innovation, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And we're going to hand it over to him now. So we'll be monitoring chat. So you can go ahead and put questions in chat, comments, and just consider it the back channel that happens as the presentation's going along. Okay, so thank you, everybody, and take it away, Spencer.
Well, thank you so much, Kay, for the introduction. And I'm not sure if I got the hashtag right there on my screen, so feel free to correct that in the chat, as you mentioned. I'm so honored and delighted to be speaking at the ELCC virtual conference, truly. And I think I can call it ELK, right? Is that okay? So I will call it ELK from here on out. And assuming you all are with me and you can see my screen, Kay, could you give me a thumbs up if you're with me? Great. So I want to start by tampering expectations. After all, I know the reason one asks a government staffer to give a keynote address is because we tend to be very reasonably priced. So for those of you who have high expectations, let's just tamper those for a minute. Also, when I agreed to this presentation, the audience was about 1/7 of the size that the registration says it is now. So that shows you two things. One, the power that open, remote, and online can generate for learners everywhere. And two, ELK forgot to cap registrations, or maybe that was intentional. One other hard thing about Zoom and presenting online, you can't hear if your jokes landed. So I'm just gonna assume that everything is floating out into the abyss. But what I do want to say is I hope you find the message of today's presentation somewhat inspirational, and at the very least motivating to keep you all going through the rest of this school year. So thank you to ELK for bringing us together in this community during this time. Apparently they had a crystal ball when planning their annual convening and made the rest of us look like fools for having to postpone our events. So I applaud you all for this innovative approach to professional development. Again, as mentioned before, introverts, of which I am one, can use the chat, and I will not be monitoring the chat, but I know rich conversation can take place there and I encourage it. So just reserve any personal comments for my email, which I'm happy to share with you all if you have feedback or if you want to connect personally. Also, one last quick disclaimer on this presentation. This presentation is not my findings of years of personal research on the topic. Rather, you'll find it reflective, genuine, and empirical account of my personal experiences and muses as a jaded optimist millennial navigating innovation in higher education. So again, tampering your expectations. Now, I want to start by extending a heartfelt thank you for the work that you all are doing as educators, not to mention as parents, family members, community leaders, and so much more amid the challenges posed by the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. It's because of you that we are keeping our students learning and continuing toward our educational goals. So I extend a genuine thank you on behalf of the Colorado Department of Higher Education and the state of Colorado and learners everywhere. Thank you for making a huge difference in our students' lives. Incidentally, if you're interested in what the Department of Higher Ed and the Colorado Commission on Higher Education are doing to support institutions during this crisis, you can find more information we've been gathering and including on this page. This includes helpful resources, answering some FAQs, and doing some benchmarking of policies across institutions in the state of Colorado and beyond. There's also a link to our hashtag No Lapse in Learning initiative. This initiative is a direct response to the challenges posed by COVID-19 and the needs of our institutions and students as they arise. No Lapse in Learning program recently received funding from our Open Educational Resources Council, a group I work with very intimately who leads statewide open education efforts here in the state of Colorado. I was really inspired by their effort to come forth and to contribute in a meaningful way. And I think we have to take these small victories to keep us fueled as we make our way forward through the unknown together. Learn more at the link posted on this slide, or bother me after the presentation if you're interested in getting involved. So we have this aggressive Uncle Sam picture here to remind you that today you get to hear from me, lucky you, but I also want to hear from you. We will be crowdsourcing action items and ideas from you all, the conference attendees, and innovative educators / residents of Colorado and beyond now, to help us inform the innovation agenda moving forward here at the Department of Higher Education, as well as we want to lean on your expertise to better serve the students that we aim to serve. And this will take place in two forms. So the first is in the form of replies to the free response Google form, which I've created and linked on this page. See the tiny URL. And if somebody wants to punch that into the chat, that might be helpful for some other folks. And the second will be in the poll that's administered through the Zoom platform during the presentation. And I actually have 3 polling questions for you. And what I'm told from the Zoom platform polling question, and actually this is my first shot at using the polling platform. I've used Zoom a lot, but haven't used polling too much. If you're on your phone, you might have trouble seeing it. So I'll go ahead and read those poll questions for those who are maybe zooming in on the phone, and you can punch replies into the chat as well. So if you're able, please pull up an additional screen, and you can use that link on this slide, as I'll be asking you all for this information later on, or at least prompting you during the presentation. And actually, I'm a realist, and I know we all like to multitask, so go ahead and submit your response to the 3-question Google form whenever you're able, and we'll revisit before the end of the presentation. A few years ago, actually, some colleagues and I wanted to start a movement of micro multitasking, in which you only work on a project for 3 minutes at a time. That did not work out too well, but I do respect multitasking. As we kick off the day, I want you all to keep some key framing questions in mind. Some questions that can be applied to the big why and how are we innovating in higher education, and can also be practically applied to any pragmatic approaches we take in our everyday work. So the questions to consider are here on the screen in front of you all, and credit to the Department of Education for inspiration on some of these. And I'll just read a little bit of them. So how can innovations support the educational ecosystem to increase access, provide opportunity, and promote success for all types of students? And this is really a question that helps us put equity at the forefront of any innovation work we pursue. We're talking about technology at this conference. We're talking about e-learning, online learning. How do we serve the students that we aim to serve? How do we keep equity in mind? How might we design or implement innovative solutions to empower the learners we aim to serve, while also accelerating our work to achieve common goals? And finally, one more framing question: how can we design new solutions to old problems to help us solve for the challenges we continue to face? Now, I haven't been working in higher education as long as some of my distinguished colleagues presenting at this event, and maybe it's just the disillusioned millennial in me, but it's quite evident that we've been attempting to address some of the same issues in our industry for a very long time. And to put it more honestly, it can be like banging your head against the wall repeatedly while bass-infused house music is thumping. So I'm talking about things like inequities, completion, student success in all forms, meeting industry demands, right? These are the issues the challenges we've been trying to solve in higher ed for quite some time. But it doesn't have to be that way. And hopefully these questions stir some opinions or thoughts that you may have around innovation in education. And as you let those questions marinate, you may begin to draw conclusions or answer them as you reflect on your bailiwick of your portfolio. However, we will not be answering them today. Rather, the questions are more intended to spark thought and fodder for further conversation as you navigate the rest of this conference and learn from the tremendous lineup of subject matter experts throughout the next couple of days. Now, what are we even talking about? I'm gonna take a sip of water. When we look around, we start to think about innovation, the fantastic sessions at this conference, the current challenges we face as a species here on planet Earth, what are we actually talking about when we talk about innovation? Well, the first thing I think is great about innovation is everybody's doing it. And here we have a few of my favorite examples from a wide swath of society. First, you have NPR's Innovation Hub podcast, a meaningful contribution in terms of journalism. Then there's the NFL Innovation Lab. Everybody's favorite hegemonic sports monopoly innovates to protect their players and ensure safety in sport. And finally, how about an example of innovation from across the ocean, the Tassi Group. Everybody knows the Tassi Group, right? A cement company in Italy, very well known for their innovative spirit. Now, I say that facetiously, and perhaps they are quite innovative, but the point is innovation, as an undefined term, has many faces, dependent on several variables, such as industry, geographical location, and/or standards, which help us identify norms and novel approaches to meeting needs or challenges. So with that, I refer you to the first question in the Google form, which is something along the lines of, how do you define innovation? How do you define educational innovation? And you'll find this is a rhetorical question for the purposes of moving forward this presentation. However, I want you to actually answer this question via the Google form I shared with you all, either now or later. And again, we're using that, what you share, to help us move forward our stakeholder-informed approach to the work we're doing at the Department of Higher Ed. I think it's important to put a name to the work we're pursuing while we continue to innovate in education, and I want you all to help me do that with this survey. I think there's strength in both common definitions and individual definitions. So again, you're going to hear me say there's no right or wrong answer, because we define this term for ourselves and we let our work be the litmus test. So giving you folks a few seconds to submit your answers on the Google form, I'll just run through a few higher ed examples that many of us are familiar with as we learn from institutions that are pushing the envelope of what traditional approaches to higher education can offer. And some of those usual suspects are actually listed on the screen. You see Carnegie Mellon with their Open Simon initiative, Ivy Tech, their approach to competency-based learning, Minerva with their kind of new model, not so new anymore, Arizona State with the work that they've been doing. And while I'm sure many of you could name dozens of others here in Colorado and other states, what I like about these three is that these organizations are taking a blatant approach to expanding online learning, competency-based approaches to diversify pathways and recognize different forms of learning, and embracing globalization to strengthen the unique products they offer. I have admiration for their work because they're making innovation work for them. They're defining the terms and they're putting it to use for the learners they aim to serve. So hopefully you've had time to submit maybe a portion of your Google form. Again, the question is, how do you define innovation? Many of us know that one of the major initiatives that we're working on here in Colorado is our Open Educational Resources Initiative, or Open Education Initiative, which finds its strength in a stakeholder-driven approach, emphasizing the power of collective impact. So we aim to innovate by applying our tools in open education to the world we know, teaching and learning, supporting students financially, supporting students with student success, expanding access. The point is there are a variety of definitions and they are all good for innovation, again, as mentioned before. Because innovation comes in many forms, I thought we could start by reviewing a few examples of innovations. And we'll start with the fantastical and draw examples closer to the world we know, which is education, right? So let's take, for example, Harry Potter. And while I was preparing this presentation, I realized how much of a Harry Potter poser I am. So forgive me if I'm not getting the details correct, but I know that Harry Potter upgraded to the Nimbus 2000 to enhance his panache for the game of Quidditch and became one of the greatest Quidditch players that the world has ever seen. Here's another example. How about the advent of the utilization of LiDAR scanners, which are a military-grade technology in the field of archaeology? This has revolutionized approaches in the academic field, leveraging known technologies to challenges that already existed, allowing researchers to map sites through dense jungle overgrowth, revealing hidden evidence of human development from our past. And here's an example that's even closer to home for many of us. The practical use of application of AI in learning apps, like Duolingo, for example, which has grown exponentially in the last 4 years. This technology had been prevalent in social applications, but they're now being extended to academic settings to expand access to knowledge for dozens of the world's languages. For us at the Department of Higher Ed, it takes the form of encouraging innovative learning and teaching practices and novel approaches to administrative challenges. The question we asked often is, how do we administer policies that support learners and teachers while accelerating toward the goals that map to the greater good? I think we're good about asking ourselves these questions. So today, as the talk explains, we're actually going to show you the good of innovation and how the bad and the ugly can also be good. Why is that? Because I'm an optimist, like I told you before. So the good, the bad, and the ugly of innovation are all intertwined. And as I prepared for this presentation, I myself began to realize that the good, the bad, and the ugly are all fluid. And I also began to think of the order of these adjectives when applied to innovation and education. As one of the conference organizers mentioned when they approached me for this presentation, they said, "Spencer, you seem to be allergic to the word innovation." It's true. I find it both a blessing and a curse, and the bad and the ugly are the reasons why. Or at least that's been my experience living with this paradox in my work title for the last couple of years. So let's start with the bad. Innovation's a cliche. It just is. But there's some truth to it. If you were to ask people with the word innovation in their title, if they were the default tech first responder on their team, I'm willing to bet they would say, "Why, yes, I am." Now, I don't have any survey data on that yet, but I hope to pursue that study someday. But why is that? Why are they the de facto kind of first responder when it comes to tech questions? Because tech shows us promise for a future we thought we could only dream of. Innovations show us promise. I've had many conversations with my partner about how one defines innovation, or when leadership requests us to do innovation at our job. So if you're like me, get it out of your system, bash the term behind its back before you use it for good. And that's the bad. How about the ugly? Well, the ugly of innovation is really important. And the reason is because it helps us get to the good. Iterations, agility, failing fast, continuous improvement, or what the Japanese called kaizen. The ugly goes by many names and allows us the space to fail in an effort to improve. For this reason, the ugly is my favorite. The ugly is what nobody wants to see, but everybody does. And the best part about the ugly is it doesn't have to last forever. And that's because of the good. The good of innovation is that liberates us from norms and gives us the freedom to pursue calculated risks, transforming the ugly into something quite good. The good is taking stock of what we have and applying our strengths to the world and challenges we already know. But you can't have the good without the bad and the ugly. So it's important to recognize the fluidity of innovation and and you must respect all three elements: the good, the bad, and the ugly. Again, making innovation work for you, defining your terms, and putting it to use for the learners that you aim to serve. So now we're going to try and launch this first poll question on Zoom. And I'm going to go ahead and read it out loud for those of you who may not be able to see, but we do have this up currently. The question is, what are the top concerns or areas of priority for you and your institution at this time? Please select the top two. This first question is asking about the world you already know, the challenges you're currently facing at your institution. And forgive me as I only allowed for a few options, but you'll see why I did that in just a little while. And for those of you concerned, my concerns are not on this survey. The Google form is meant to capture other thoughts you might have. So the polling has closed, and I'm going to go ahead and read it. I think I'm going to share results, but some people cannot see the shared results. Looks like 51% of the people are saying challenges related to the COVID pandemic. Of course, we had to put that on here because we're owning the space that we're all coming from right now. But another significant one is efforts to address equity gaps in learning and student success. Another high result, meeting and the evolving needs of the ever diversifying student population. Those could be maybe even related. Thank you for participating there. What we're gonna do is we're gonna share that poll. We're gonna compare your results up against some of the results from a wider survey, a data set from a wider survey. So the second question that I wanna ask you all, let me see if I can get to it. Is with regard to the ELCC. So framed under the auspices of the ELCC community, ELK community. And the question asks, what applications, technologies, approaches, or strategies show the most promise for you? And perhaps addressing the challenges that you mentioned before. So let's see if we can launch this second poll.
And Spencer, I don't want to interrupt. We did hear on the last one, we might want to leave this poll up just a little bit longer.
Absolutely. And I think it just kind of automatically closed. So let me just make sure I'll reopen it if it does that again. Thank you, Kristen. So again, let me read the question for those of you who can't read it. ELK brings together the Rocky Mountain region and more this year, higher ed institutions in the spirit of collaboration, innovation, networking, and problem solving to leverage tech that promotes meaningful learning. Pick the top 3 technologies trends that reflect your work. Or maybe show the most promise for your work. So we're getting some good, rich responses here. And it looks like this poll is staying open a little bit longer, which is great. I still see some coming in, but I'll go ahead and start to read some of the common responses that I'm seeing. So I'm seeing trending open educational resources and open pedagogy practices, which I'm very excited to see. I see a high answer for analytics and student success. Over 50% of you have also identified adaptive learning technologies. Some of the lower answers have been blockchain applications for use in credentialing, enhancing student experience. Excuse me. Another high answer, elevation of instructional design, learning engineering, and UX design in pedagogy. Does not surprise me with this group. I'm surprised to see VR and XR, all the R's, all the augmented realities, virtual realities, not trending as high. Let's go ahead and share the results with you all. So here's the results from the group that I mentioned. I'm not sure if you all are seeing that, but again, I did call out a few of those. The highest response was the open education and open pedagogy practices, which I'm very delighted to see. And you'll find out more about why as I move through the rest of this presentation. So thank you for participating in that. So if the limited selection of answers looked familiar, that's because most of them came from the EDUCAUSE Horizon report. This is a great annual report created in conjunction with the organization, and the Horizon Expert Panel is what they call it. The approach for the Horizon report is to engage the expert panel to survey the landscape and identify the most influential trends shaping higher education, teaching, and learning. But what we did today is we're democratizing this survey to assess the trends for you all and to assess the trends for us here in Colorado, which is why I say you help us drive the agenda for innovation work here at the CDHE. With any government, we are not soothsayers. We are not the final authority. We're simply in a position to convene experts, thinkers like yourselves to strategically implement policies for the greater good. So this is really where the power comes from. With this data and this feedback, I'd like to continue to work with the ELK community and you all to advance innovation in Colorado. So now that we've talked a little bit about this theoretical approach, the good, the bad, the ugly, what about the practical application of it all? Well, for those of you who know me, you probably expected that I wanted to talk about open education during this presentation. And you'd be exactly right with that assumption. And quickly, just wanted to brief you all on a story of how I got involved with our open education work. And it was really special, but it started off very ugly. Essentially, my boss was out of town when this work kicked off and was out of town for an extended amount of time and put it on my plate in addition to all the other things that I had going on, all the other work stresses, all the other personal stresses, right? I had no idea where this would lead, but though it started out quite ugly, it became something that I've really embraced and something that's been a delight for me to engage with. And so this picture here shows you some of our key OER leaders in the state, or open education leaders in the state, pictured with some of the policymakers here in the state of Colorado. And that includes a congressman, a former lieutenant governor, the current governor, and a few other public officials. So quite, you can't unbundle the ugly and the bad from the good. But quite quickly, we moved from ugly and bad to good, and we cycle through that all the time with our open ed work. The reason why I wanted to share this example is because it's a known example here in the state of Colorado, but it's how we're putting educational innovation to work on our terms to meet the needs and challenges we already know. Not only do we aim to enrich and deepen learning, and invite educators into the next era of teaching and learning through open educational practices, open pedagogy, but we aim to save our dear students here in the United States money and improving their experiences, or at least affording them opportunities to do so. And this actually is really more of a global initiative as well, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But this again, as I mentioned, this effort has been driven by our group of experts, representatives from the state of Colorado, from Colorado campuses, who you see pictured here with those familiar faces. The leaders here in this group are called the OER Council, and we'll talk more about them a little bit later on. But let's start a little bit further back. Let's start with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And I like to start there because this is a document that was written as a promise after the conclusion of the largest recorded war in human history. And the opening reads, "Recognition of the inherent dignity and the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family, I love that, is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world." And I think these are all sentiments we can get behind as educators, or maybe just even as human beings. And speaking of the Declaration of Human Rights and Education, Article 26 of this document specifically states everyone has the right to an education. Another sentiment we all likely share. This notion is continued in current days through the UN's work through its education branch, UNESCO, and the Sustainable Development Goals, which you see on your screen now. Now, I start broad to remind us that we're all connected in the work we're doing in education and in open education. And I think we're really feeling that these days, especially on the global scale, especially with the shared challenges that we're going through at this time. And in this vein, perhaps it's no coincidence that the work we pursue here at the Colorado Department of Higher Education, especially with regard to open education, aims to address not only the Sustainable Development Goal number 4, but also the goals of the state of Colorado. All the work we do at the Department of Higher Ed follows a simple principle. Our mission, which is we support students, advocate, and develop policies to maximize higher education opportunities for all. And as you can see, the Commission's master plan, Colorado Rises is the name of the document, we aim to achieve this mission by moving toward these goals in all that we do. Those goals are listed on your screen right now. That includes this presentation, which is why I'm harvesting feedback from you all to inform our work. You'll see innovation and containing cost is a priority for our organization. We aim to do this through our innovation work and our open education work. But it's not just the CDHE. In fact, the state of Colorado released a statewide report with over 6,000 Coloradan respondents on the survey, engaged in over 70 roundtable community sessions, and received feedback from over 100 subcommittee professional experts on the report that they call the State of Colorado. I'm sorry, the State of Education. Now, the State of Education report calls out Agile Systems. You can kind of see at the base of the mountain here, very Colorado, calls out Agile Systems as one of the drivers of change. So it's important that we move nimbly and with agility to embrace new tech, innovations, and novel practices to better serve the learners we address and the challenges that we currently know. And agility is something we need in Colorado, as evidenced by this statistic. In Colorado, we have an interest in open education for many reasons. Chief among them is to save students money, because we fund post-secondary education at a low rate when compared to our peers. This means students carry the financial burden as they navigate turbulent tides as it is. So open education is one way we've been able to contain costs for students while also encouraging innovation in teaching and learning practices. Something we do have here in Colorado is an innovative spirit. Nowhere is that more evident than in our open education work. So our OER Council, the group that you saw before, is a stakeholder-driven leadership group, and it's given the department direction on moving open education forward in Colorado, moving this innovation forward in Colorado. And that includes 3 elements: building structure, building culture, and building evidence for what we do and how we do it. My trust in working with the council has continued to grow because we've seen so much progress in such a short amount of time. But you don't have to take my word for it. Let's listen to this short impromptu testimonial from one of our outstanding faculty members at the CU Anschutz Medical Campus.
No, I just wanted to really thank you for your help with the OER initiative, because it has really transformed education in our campus. OER almost did not exist in this campus just a few years ago. And it took just a group of like-minded people interested in OER to get it started. But really the grant last year is what really got the program working. And through the grant, we were able to develop this program where we were able to educate a large cohort of faculty, and now they are incorporating OER in their courses, and we're moving on with other aspects of the program now. I'm moving on. Our campus has a very unique characteristic that we are creators of knowledge as well. And I think we can fill a niche that maybe other campuses cannot, in that we can not only incorporate OER in our courses, but we can generate OER that can be used around the world. Really, these resources can be used anywhere. So that's what inspires us. But getting the grant again this year has been fantastic, because it's really going to help our efforts here. We really couldn't do it without it. So.
Would you say your name?
Natalia Vergara.
Okay, thank you.
So, clearly, Dr. Vergara's passion and driving innovation in open education work for her on her terms is something that she's doing at the medical facility here in Colorado. And she mentioned one thing that I wanted to call out. She said our campus has a unique characteristic in that we're generating knowledge. And I think she means that from the research perspective, but I think that argument could be made for all educators. So I think it's really inspirational to see them making innovation work on their terms. And it doesn't end there. This is truly empowered by a decentralized approach to these efforts. And what I mean by that is what you have in front of your screen now. Yes, the state leadership is essential to making this happen. And we're fortunate to have Governor Polis, our governor, as one of the biggest advocates for innovation in education and using open education as a tool to accelerate us towards our goals in equity, access, and attainment in higher ed. And our approach to innovation is even more than that. We've taken a decentralized approach to this initiative so everybody can have a bite of the cherry. This is reflected in our growing cohort of open education ambassadors, who are resident champions, advocates, and experts leading this work locally to meet their community needs. You saw one in the video there. We also participate in ongoing faculty and student workshops, led by faculty, led by students. For example, during Open Education Week, where we had a variety of presentations to bring everyone on board, for contributing to this innovation. And though it hasn't always been easy, and certainly hasn't always been pretty, and has sometimes been ugly, as I mentioned before, it truly has come into a win-win situation for educators, students, and administrations in Colorado. Our work centers around the Open Education 3-year grant program, and you heard the faculty member, Dr. Vergara, talking a little bit more about open education and the grant program. We're not prescriptive in the grant program. We give the educators the money to design the learning best suited for their learners, the learners that they aim to serve. And yes, we're returning the state's investment in terms of saving students money on books and resources, but it goes deeper than that. And we aim to enrich teaching and learning both now and in the future. The other thing we aim to do is stack the deck for students in Colorado, and here's how it works. We need innovations at all levels if we aim to better serve the learners that we aim to serve. And you can see that here with this particular graphic. Government leaders and policymakers may be the foundation of this work to pull the levers and give us the funding that we need to do the work, but faculty and staff are important to implementing this. I don't have to tell you all that. You know, I come from a campus as well before this job, and I understand the work that we do on campus and how important it is and how we stay connected to the students. And we are the glue that connects the students to the policy, right? So faculty and staff are the middle of this sandwich. And you can see that all the work that we're doing when we're stacking this deck is for the benefit of students, for the benefit of their tailored learning and pedagogical experiences, right? And not only that, but also in open education to save money. So we see this as an investment in teaching and learning. We're not prescriptive, as I mentioned before. We leave it up to the grantees, the educators doing the work for the students. And we've seen amazing examples of this as a result of this innovation model. We've seen entire departments getting on board to better services. We've seen we've seen proposals for bettering services for incarcerated students. We've seen students co-authoring textbook with professors as editors. We're seeing it all. And innovation is being kind of their tool. They're making innovation work for them. And why? For the students. And here's just a handful of those we worked with directly last term. And in fact, this was at an event, the students here pictured on the right of your screen, where the students were able to tell their stories. And you know, policymakers, they don't want to hear from government staffers. Sometimes they do want to hear from teachers and faculty and educators because you all are actually doing the work, but they really want to hear from students. And so when a student can come and say that these innovations make a difference in my life, it makes a great case. The other picture, the other folks you see pictured on the screen are the OER Council members. And here's some examples for our ambitions for open education in Colorado. This is actually pulled from a document that gives policy recommendations around open education. We know that open education is an innovation that can be used to pursue many of these things, right? And we've seen examples of these around the world. So it's very special. And some of the things that we want to see happen in Colorado and with our partners that we work with. And this here is just a kind of the approach that we're taking in terms of the policy that we aim to pursue, which calls for input from innovators like yourselves. And if I were to pick a place that we are on this map, I would say we're somewhere between determining the vision for OER and framing the OER policy. So if you have ideas for open education and how you'd like to see that executed, I heard that over 60% of you all consider this a priority in your work. I want to hear about those things. And back to the Google Doc as we start to wrap things up, you know, I ask you all with regard to open education, because you knew I was going to ask you more about this, which of these is a priority area you are most interested in addressing through your work? And actually what we're going to do is another Zoom poll. So let me pull this up. Our last poll. So again, for those of you on the phone, with regard to open education, here's the poll. Which of these priority areas are you most interested in addressing through your work? And the categories are improving collaboration and dissemination of OER, addressing gaps in the open textbook marketplace and bringing solutions to scale, promoting student success through the use of OER and OE practices, and using technology-based strategies for personalized learning and continuous improvement. We're seeing some pretty even splits, although we asked you to select one, and we're seeing that using technology-based strategies for personalized learning and continuous improvement is kind of taking the lead here. Give you a few more seconds on that poll. And then looks like polling is starting to slow down. So just sharing the results here. Using technology-based strategies for personalized learning and continuous improvement. Great, I was hoping you all would say that. These 4 categories actually come from the US Department of Education's federal open education grant, which they are launching this fall. And I want to partner with you all to put in a proposal for Colorado that can be scaled not only for the Rocky Mountain region, for all the ELCC members, but beyond that, nationally and even globally. And maybe it's because I'm ambitious, but I would love to see your ideas for this. So I'm happy to receive this feedback. And I would love to see how you all, the subject matter experts in using technology-based strategies, would be willing to contribute to such a proposal to launch us into the next phase of learning and teaching here in Colorado. So again, if you finish that Google Doc, the tiny URL again is on your screen. Please submit your information if you want to get involved, because like I said before, the strength is really in this stakeholder-driven approach to the work that we're doing. So as we wrap up, you know, like I said before, it's not just open education, right? At least not for us here in Colorado. It could be a number of things. One other initiative we have going on at the Colorado Department of Higher Education, My Colorado Journey, which is our recently launched online platform, and the focus is to deliver personalized information to Coloradans of any age across many different walks of life to help them on their educational journeys for lifelong learning. This is a really novel, new idea for us here in Colorado, and I encourage you all to check out the site if you get the chance, because we're doing some really neat things there. It's also our work in blockchain and our partners at the Learning Economy that we worked with to launch the C Lab, in which we aim to apply distributed ledger applications to support the learners most at risk in our systems and most in need of novel strategies to help them address the challenges they already know. We're also involved with the US Department of Education's technical working group on blockchains and interacting with other states to see how we can lean on them and learn from one another. And it's so much more than that. But how hasn't always been pretty, and in fact, many pieces are still quite ugly. So again, as I remind you, innovation is iterative. It's good and bad and ugly all at the same time. But remember what we talked about earlier, the ugly can be the best part. And it's my favorite, of course. And that's why and that's where the deepest learning takes place, in my particular opinion. So it's with that, I leave you all with a challenge to join us. This picture here, I wanted to share a little bit more while I leave you all with final thoughts, and I think we have time for questions. These are folks, some colleagues that I met that are actually from India that I met in Slovenia. And again, we reconvened a little bit later on in 2019 at Open Education Policy Forum in Poland. The first project that we had worked on and a chance that I got to work with them on was Open Education for a Better World. It's a UNESCO project that aims to leverage and harness the innovative power of open education on a global scale to achieve those SDGs that I told you before. And then here at this policy forum, we were talking about open education policy considerations. But I really think that, you know, if we do come together, we can achieve these things. And this is just one small example of that. And this has been my personal experience. So again, I thank you all for taking the time to engage with me. I see there's over 99 chat comments, so I'm going to have to buzz through all those and read all of them. But I think we have time for some Q&A now. And Kay, I'm not sure if that Q&A happens via chat.
We have our question, and this was actually something that Sherry Jones and I asked you about, and it was great to see that it showed up. First of all, the OER initiative has been wonderful, and we have so many people who have been involved and have been looking at the students to do it. But here's the thing, and we can say this at the eLearning Consortium of Colorado, because we're grassroots. We're from the bottom up. Well, a lot of the OER initiatives are top up. So somebody with a really big, long title makes a decision on who's going to do OER for the institution. But we want to still be involved. What way can we still be involved if the department we're in isn't pursuing going OER textbook, or if there is a decision that's been made that, say, it's going to be another campus is going to pursue it. What can we do? We have a lot of adjunct instructors who are brilliant teachers and scholars and want to be involved.
Absolutely. And this is kind of that's a great question, Kate. I think this is kind of the decentralized approach that I was alluding to. And for those of you who don't know me personally, I am not like your typical government official, right? Like, I mean, cool. you called me a government official. I wouldn't even call myself that. I'm a staffer that happens to work at the Department of Higher Ed, but I feel like I've infiltrated government, right? On behalf of all of us. So if I can serve as your connection for any sort of these ideas that people have, I would love to. Now, what I was talking about was stacking the deck. Everybody has a role to play, but there should be a bite of the cherry for everybody. I truly do believe that. We do need to leverage the power that leadership has in terms of making those determinations in order to empower ourselves, right? So that might look different for each community, but if there are pockets of innovation or pockets of ideas for open education specifically boiling up at various institutions, I want to hear about them. I want to learn about how I can support you all in the work that you're doing. So, you can contact me directly for what it's worth if you find that there's any use in that. And if not, let's come together as a group. I think there's, like I said, power in the voice of the stakeholders in this decentralized approach. So if we come together maybe it's through ELK, or maybe it's through other groups that are already existing out there, I think we can have a powerful voice. And the other part of that is, bringing the students with us, because the student voice, like I said before, is just so strong and so powerful for all the cases that we make. And that's how we were able to make a good case for open education, and we continue to make an open case for open education. So we'll see what the future looks like. I know that there's a lot of unknown with regard to everything that we're doing, but I think it really is a good time for e-learning or distance learning, remote learning, open education, all these things to shine.
And that was really the big question that showed up. We've been having like a little discussions on the sides, and a request for your slides, if that's okay, and we'll,
of course.
We'll go ahead and put them on a link on the schedule. And anybody else want to put in any other questions in chat before we say goodbye to Spencer? And along that side, I was going to say, look, there are other sessions that are on OER during the conference. There will be a session, if blockchain, the first time you've ever heard it, there's a blockchain 101 later today. And I just wanted to thank you for breaking down innovation, the good, the bad, the ugly, because a lot of times, we're not willing to show people the ugly.
But it's the best part. So yes, you're exactly right. And I honestly thank you all for the opportunity. This is going to be an amazing conference. And I hope, some of the questions that we threw out kind of just get the juices flowing like we talked about. And as you hear from these experts, these deep experts on various technologies, various strategies, think about some of the framing questions that we put forth and I would love to collaborate with any and all of you too.
Okay, so I think that's all we have in questions. So on behalf of the eLearning Consortium of Colorado, thank you so much for kicking us off with this. It was perfect.
Thank you, Kay. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the conference. I'll see you in the Twitter feed.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. Hi, I see Stacy. I have a general question regarding effort as educator. If there's still people around, go ahead. I don't know if Spencer's still there, but we can maybe try and help. Stacy?
I'm here, but I don't know if that the question was intended for me or just.
I don't know either. I was just waiting to hear for Stacy.
Yeah.
But she types real fast. And again, presentation slides. When we get the link from Spencer, we'll quite honestly, I'm sending out a guide to the side each night. When I get them, I'll include the link. Any chance I can use my real voice? Greg, are you there? And can you unmute Stacy? Oh, Spencer, contact info.
Greg is here.
Yes.
Yes. What do you want me to do? Unmute Stacy?
Yeah, unmute Stacy. Taylor just typed in always best dressed. Oh, and the unmute option is the host has to do it, and we're just doing that because of all the Zoom bombing. Sorry. So Stacy, I think Greg's trying to do that. Be ready to type if not.
See if Stacy, you there?
Okay, asking about the block.
I did an unmute all, so is she still here?
And I did get a question about where to go for the blockchain. I put the link to the schedule in there, and each of the sessions has their own Zoom room so that we can record them.
Stacy, can you try to say something? Well.
And she said she's going to type.
So. Okay, well, I highlighted her name and said she could talk, and I've unmuted, so not sure what else to do.
It's all right. It's okay. And yes, I want to thank everyone for being patient with how conservative we're going with our Zoom rooms.
Look, now I got a notification there.
Yay!
Yay!
So I guess my question is, like, I'm an adjunct and I have 2 small children, and like the time is very precious in general. And so my question is, like, full-time faculty, they're paid for whatever they do during the day. I am not paid for whatever I do during the day. So when opportunities like they said, you know, go ahead and submit an RFP to Open Ed, or you know, even coming here, like, this is just on my time. At what point is it going like too far into the fact that if we're doing work, we deserve to be compensated, or we have to make the decision of, I can't afford to do these on my own because there's other things that I need to do, I guess.
And I don't know if Spencer's on or not, but this is something we, myself and Sherry Jones, we mentioned this to Spencer, like when we were talking about the session, is that, yeah, the thing of it is we have so many talented adjunct faculty. And we would love it if when some OR thing came out, if maybe it could be specific to adjunct faculty, specifically, you know, targeted for adjunct faculty to help with OER, because what Stacy said is absolutely the truth. It's an adjunct faculty who would want to create OER would spend a lot of time, you know, working on that proposal, and there's no guarantee that it would get accepted. But at the same point in time, if a faculty member does it, they're you know, they're full-time, they're salaried, they're things like that. Could the Department of Education come up with some grants that are specific to maybe adjunct faculty developing, so that you can tap this great, I mean, this great resource of people who are wonderful teachers and intellects and who could provide so much.
Yeah, you know, that's Kay, that's still a question we're trying to wrap our mind around. One of our OER Council representatives is actually an adjunct faculty member, and she teaches at 2 different institutions. She teaches, you know, same old story. She teaches 7 classes per term. You know, and it's something that has come up kind of indirectly, but I think one opportunity for that would be changing the model of our grant. We have another year's worth of grant money at the Department of Higher Ed. And so if I heard that feedback from you all, which I have, and I can bring that back to the council, you know, we're talking about this decentralized approach. I mean, that really is in the spirit of a decentralized approach. If we said there's little pots of money for, you know, I don't know if we would necessarily discriminate to say this is specifically for adjuncts, but maybe the way that we pose it is, are you a faculty member who has an idea independent of your institution, but still serves your learners, right? Or independent of your department, but still serves your learners? You know, show us in a proposal, demonstrate how this is going to have an impact on those learners, and we'll get you the funds to do that. So I think there's potential for reworking our model of how we award this. And the reason why we can do that is because the first couple of years of grant funding, we've done more of the traditional approach in terms of institution gets money is given to individual faculty members. And if you're not part of that hierarchy, I could see how, you know, adjunct is maybe left out in the wings, but maybe we could think about that too. So,
you know, if we wanted to move that forward, on some of the campuses, there are adjunct councils even that might be able to represent that. And I'm not sure what Stacy teaches, but there's, you know, it all depends. She might be in an area that, so maybe the full-time faculty members aren't looking to go OER, but the adjuncts are. And I wanted to, this is from, I don't have the full name, it's JAAMD. It says, Spencer, I'm a chemistry adjunct who has participated as a SME for OER. Have you ever heard of a program for developing lab kits for online courses? Could we develop our own lab kits for online courses? Currently, we use private companies to make the lab kits.
I would love to see a proposal for a Colorado created lab kit, because you're exactly right. I know that like Carolina, it used to be Carolina Biological, right? Carolina, for example, does a lot of the you know, lab kits that are out there, but it is a proprietary effort. If there's a very creative, you know, innovative educator out there, I would love to hear about it, because we haven't had proposals for lab kits specifically. You know, some of the projects that I called out during the presentation were really cool concepts, really cool ideas, and we're seeing more and more, but we're trying to build this culture of creativity and innovation. And I would love to see something like that, or I'd love to see, you know, a few STEM faculty coming together and saying, here's our approach, right? I'm at this institution, I'm at this institution, but we could form kind of this coalition to put together lab kit model that could be scaled at other institutions. Would love that. Send me an email.
And do we have any other questions before we close? I see we still have 40 people in, so if you have a question, or we'll find Spencer's email again if you want to. We have someone.
I see Stacy's question about the online homework systems. And it is very costly. And actually, one of our grantees that was awarded this year is starting their proposal was for a system-wide, in the community college system, a system-wide approach to online homework through WebWork, which is an open source alternative to essentially to MyMathLab. If you're using MyMathLab right now, Stacy, but I know that they want to scale that up. And I don't know what institution you're at, Stacy, but in the community college system, they've tagged a number of institutions to kind of lead this effort. I'm happy to connect you with any of them if you want to learn a little bit more about what they're doing in terms of, you know, an open solution to the online math homework. Yeah, looking at an OER system. Yeah, evaluating for math. Oh, in the liberal arts, but you're not allowed to help her to participate. Let's strategize. Gosh, I mean,
Spencer, yeah, I was gonna say we have a lot of that. ELK is essentially like is the grassroots, the people who go in and grind it out and work on things, and we have a lot of people just like Stacy.
Yeah, I mean, math is an entire conversation, right? When we're talking about these trends in our industry, that we need people to take the right math courses. Math for the liberal arts is one of those courses that, you know, that we need to pay attention to. So yeah, hierarchies, I hear you on that, but maybe ELK can be the conduit from which we can generate some of this feedback to inform our agenda, like we were talking about too. For individuals and for kind of the trend, like you're mentioning, you know, if we have a lot of people.
Yeah, Stacy, math 120, right?
That was my favorite math to take too. Not that I took too many others beyond that, but.
So do we have other questions or other comments before we close up? Because I don't want to keep people from the other great sessions.
Yeah, well, again, standing offer, Kay, you just tell me I mean, you and I will connect certainly,
okay,
but
yeah.
anybody else who has lingering questions, I did send you the presentation slides as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And I want to thank everybody, and bye-bye. See you in other sessions.
Thanks, everyone.